In this lesson, we'll look at the useContext hook. The way that we create a context, whether in React before we had hooks or now when we have hooks, is pretty much the same. But the way that we consume that context is a little different. So in a class, if I want to consume context, I need to wrap my JSX in that context. And then that will provide to me a property that I can then use from that context. The value of that context is passed down to me from that wrapper. Now I'll illustrate that here. I conveniently have a theme context already created. So if I import here, theme context from we get theme context. Now I'm able to come in here and add theme context dot consumer. And then inside I get a function that can give me my context value, gives me the theme, and I can then return a component, which is the component that I want to provide that theme context to. And inside of it, I can then consume that context. Now, with my context added, I can very manually go to my theme provider and change it from light to dark and back to light. That's how I would get context in classes world of React. Now let's look at how I would achieve the same using hooks. Hooks made it far much easier, in my opinion, to be able to add context. All you need to do is import a hook called useContext. And then we call the useContext hook and pass to it the context that we want to provide. In this case, the theme context. Let's import that. And this will provide to us the context, the value of that context. And in this case, I want to destructure theme out of it. And then I can provide that to the card. This pretty much achieves the same thing, and I can show that by manually changing my context again from light to dark and dark to light again. All right, now let's take a look at these components again, side by side. As you can see in classes world, if I want to add, consume a context, I need to wrap my component. I need to wrap my component with the context consumer, and then it'll provide to me a value that I can then provide to the component. But I don't like this practice because it means that anytime I want to consume context or any value that is passed along in this way, I need to come in and edit my tree, my React component tree, and add this additional wrapper to it. And you can imagine if I have multiple contexts that I need to be providing, I will keep wrapping and wrapping and wrapping. And this over time can create what is called wrapper hell, where your component tree has lots of components wrapping other components just for the sake of providing values down to them. Whereas if we look at the same thing in function world, in hooks world, I simply need to call the useContext hook. And just like how useState worked, and just like any other property that I am providing to the context, I just get it and pass it along to my component tree without a need to alter the component tree itself. I just get context and pass it along as a prop. Now, one thing I want to point out that we can already begin to see is that hooks kind of form this natural way of reading through your component and understanding what is going on. We can already start to see that we can use state and get a name from it, use state again and get a surname from it, use context and get a theme from it. And this makes it easy to follow along what's going on in the component without needing to jump around too much. And that wraps up our lesson on the useContext hook. I've attached a link to the repository in the description. Each lesson is its own branch, and within that branch you will find two commits, one called start and the other called end, which is at the start of the lesson and at the end of the lesson, so that you can easily follow along. Okay, let's meet in the next one.